Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1992 direct-to-video sequel, 976 Evil 2, The Astral Factor. Now, this is one of those direct-to-video sequels that is not on par with the first film, but it's still enjoyable in its own right. And before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I want to give a special shout out to Brock for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to my PayPal. The link will be in the video description down below, and I'll try to get to it as soon as I possibly can. Now, 976 Evil 2 is a film that I did watch years ago, and I remember liking it more than the first. But after rewatching it again, I would say that I prefer the first film over this, but I still had fun with this one. This is a movie that does quite a bit with its low budget and is a lot better than your average direct-to-video horror sequel from around this time period. I mean, it beats the crap out of Chud 2, Bud the Chud, or Food of the Gods Part 2, stuff like that. And I know that's not necessarily saying a lot because those films set such a low bar, but this is still a movie that has some clever moments, some fun sequences, and goes by at a relatively quick enough pace. The film was directed by Jim Wynorski, who is known for directing cult films like Chopping Mall, Deathstalker 2, and this movie. He also did Return to Swamp Thing, which I'm a big fan of. And this is definitely one of his better movies. I wouldn't say it's on par with Chopping Mall or Return to Swamp Thing, but it's definitely better than a lot of his normal average fare when it comes to not only the quality of the full film, but also when it comes to the quality of the direction. Jim Wynorski is not a director who is really that well known for consistently solid directing, and this is one of those rare instances where he has some direction that is pretty solid and relatively consistent. It has a good energy to it, a good spirit. It's not too lethargic. It's not too slow or going through the motions. It does have a little bit more ambition and drive and risk factor than some of his other low budget films in terms of the way that he moves the camera or shoots certain sequences. The moments that involve like a car chase or an explosion or creative death scenes or visual effects, they're shot in ways that are relatively impressive for a direct-to-video kind of production. There's a whole sequence in the movie where a whole room is going bonkers in the vein of something like Evil Dead 2. And the way that it's shot and directed, it's very manic, but still feels relatively controlled. And it just works. And there's other sequences, like typical sort of stalk and slash scenes involving co-eds or other people getting chased by the killer. And those are scenes that are also shot in ways that do actually provide some suspense and some tension. And it does seem like he had a lot of fun with it and definitely gave it his all. And I think that went a long way because Jim Wynorski, his direction in this is such a genuine positive that it's a big reason why this film is even as good as it is. Now, the film also features a screenplay by Eric Anjou and Rick Glassman, and this script is okay. It's decent enough. It does a good job reintroducing characters like Spike from the first movie and doing its best to provide depth for new characters like Robin or the villain Mr. Grubeck. But it does have moments where it's a letdown. In particular, the ending, I don't really care for the ending. It's a really weird mix of tones. And on top of that, it's very unsatisfying. And I like the fact that Spike is brought in back into the fold. He's brought back to this franchise, and he definitely does feel very welcome here. And it's cool to see Spike have more to do and more screen time and be a consistent presence throughout the entire film, unlike in 976 Evil. But it's bittersweet because of the way that things are handled in the end. I don't think it was a good idea to kill him off. And if they were going to do that, definitely don't do it the way that they did, because I didn't even know he was dead at first until a line of dialogue said that he was dead, and it was his spirit that inexplicably just decided to stop the killer. And that just made the whole bit with Bridget Nielsen's character, who owns this occult bookstore, seem kind of pointless. Because I thought that was about him learning astral projection. Which, by the way, that's a really clever, cool idea that this script incorporates. That Mr. Grubeck, this serial killer, can astral project himself across different parts of the world, so to speak. Well, he doesn't actually go overseas. He mainly stays strictly in the town that the film is set in, but he can travel from different planes. And so he can be behind bars and seemingly unable to escape, but he's able to project his spirit and have it wreak havoc and terror while he's incarcerated. I thought that was a really fun idea, and I think the script does provide a lot of fun moments with that concept. And the screenplay is also really unique in a lot of different ways. Like, even the opening kill is really cheeky and fun and different. Like, you have this hot college co-ed who's running around naked or topless, and she's chased by the killer, and she winds up on the stage for the stage play, which I think might be something like Dante's Inferno or something along those lines. So the stage is set up to look like it's a hellscape, and the killer, he corners her on the stage and kills her with a stalactite that falls from the ceiling. I thought that was pretty clever. And that cleverness continues with other death scenes in the film. Like, there's one in particular that I thought was really unique and honestly pretty cool, where Grubeck uses his powers that he's gotten from the horoscope phone line to mess around with reality. So he winds up sucking this character who is like friends with the main co-star, Robin, and he sucks her into this television, and now she's a part of this demented, twisted take on It's a Wonderful Life that also has a bit of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead thrown in there. And I thought that was really clever and fun. It kind of reminded me of stuff you'd see in like Waxwork or Waxwork 2 or a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel. So I really thought that was pretty cool. And they did a great job splicing this character into It's a Wonderful Life. And there's a lot of other, I wouldn't say there's a lot, but there are other moments that are kind of similar to that in that vein. It's not the most bloody film, but there are some moments that definitely do provide the gore. I mean, there's this guy who was a witness to Grubeck killing the college co-head at the start of the movie, and he's like a homeless guy, and Grubeck essentially shoves him into the middle of a busy road or the freeway, and he gets hit head on with a semi, and it's a very bloody moment. Like, the guy gets hit, and then it's just blood and just meat everywhere. The guy was turned into total hamburger. And it definitely doesn't retread the same ground as the first film. It's not really a tale of a slow descent into madness or corruption like the first movie. This is more of like a teen slasher. And I think that was a good idea, to have a different approach with things. But despite their best efforts when it comes to this Robin character, I don't think the script really does the best job making you connect or really care about the character that much, especially as much as Spike. And the ending, when it comes to what they do to Spike, it's really lame. You think that he's going to use astral projection, outsmart the killer, Mr. Grubeck, but instead he just crashes his bike and dies, and his ghost comes back and punches Grubeck off a cliff. And then for some reason, his spirit flies up into the sky, and it turns into a heart. And there's like fireworks, and it looks like something that somebody made out of a light bright. It's one of those things where, like, what the hell is this? Like, I know Shocker had a similar kind of thing with that movie, but that seemed like it fit more than what this was. This was just lame. And then, to make matters worse, the ending is one of those twist endings where the lead character or the final survivor is completely screwed over, which also makes the script not really anything more than mediocre. Because it does this stupid thing where, after everything that Robbins went through, now she's getting arrested and essentially blamed for the murder of Mr. Grubeck, because she says that Spike did it, but Spike's been dead, so there's no way for a dead guy to help her. So that was shitty. I gotta be honest, that was a really shitty ending. So it left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth when it comes to this script. But it's still a lot better than I thought it would be for a direct-to-video screenplay. It has some moments of genuine action. There's like a scene where a car drives into a power plant of some sort, and it just massive explosion. There's another scene where it seems like something straight out of like a Terminator 2 ripoff, where Grubeck is in a semi-truck going after Spike, and Spike throws some bombs. And like I said, there are other moments where it definitely delivers the gruesome goods, or just fun, like the house that's possessed and just going nuts and shooting frozen dinners at Spike and just going absolutely insane. Speaking of Spike, might as well mention the film's cast. It's an okay cast. I mean, the issue that I have with this film is really with a couple performers, and one of them is a performer that has a majority of the screen time, or at least a good chunk of it. Patrick O'Brien isn't really a problem at all. He picks up where he left off in the first movie, and plays a genuinely cool, badass, charismatic character. That's why it sucked to see the script essentially fuck him over with the way that it handled his character by the finale. Because I liked everything that was going on before that. Spike is a drifter. He's a guy who drifts from place to place on his bike, and you can tell that he's trying to fight against the evil of the horoscope, and he feels like he is, in a lot of ways, kind of a angel, a guardian angel for people that are tormented or are targeted by this horoscope and its evil powers. And that's how he ultimately finds Robin, because she's being targeted by Mr. Grubeck, who is working with Dark to get all these demonic powers so he can become even more evil and even more powerful. And the performance by Debbie James, though, it's really bad. She's nice to look at. She's hot. She definitely is a beautiful woman. And I think she was cast mainly for that. She was cast for her looks and not for her acting talent. Because it's honestly at around your average porn star level or even below that. Like, she was really awful. Her line delivery was bad, and she didn't really have the best chemistry with Spike either, with Patrick O'Brien. And yeah, I feel that they made a mistake with her. I think they could have cast someone else. Like, for instance, I think it might have been a good idea to cast the actress who played her friend, who is into horror movies. Because that one sequence that she was in, Leslie Ryan, I thought she was not only a better actress, but she had a little bit more genuine charisma about her and a little bit more screen presence, even though she wasn't as pretty. And I think she would have done a better job. Bridget Nielsen is also in this, but it's a cameo. She plays this owner of this occult bookstore named Agnes, and she's hitting on Spike and helping him figure out or learn a little bit about astral projection. It was fun to see Bridget Nielsen. You could tell she was having some cheeky fun herself with that role. You also have George Buck Flower, who plays Terrell, this guy who saw Mr. Grubeck murder the college co-head in the beginning of the movie. Paul Coufos is also in this as a detective or sheriff. Yeah, he plays Sheriff Stone. You also have Rene Assa. He plays Mr. Grubeck. He's the killer in this. And there are some moments where his performance is decent enough, but I don't know. I just was never intimidated by this guy. And I don't think he really had enough gravitas to be the main villain of the movie. Like, he felt like a henchman for a main villain. He didn't really feel like he was strong enough to be the driving force or the driving evil force when it comes to a film like this. And you could tell, like, he didn't do a whole lot throughout his career. He wasn't really a big time star or anything. So I get why they couldn't get like a bigger name for a movie like this, but at the same time, I think they could have gotten maybe a better actor. Maybe he wouldn't have been a bigger name, but maybe he could have at least brought a little bit more of an intimidation factor, because I think that would have helped the film. Because I just don't really find scenes with Mr. Grubeck to be that scary or that intense. Like, Stephen Jeffries, say whatever you want about him, but he has a certain presence to him when he's playing a possessed hoax that is genuinely unsettling. And I didn't really feel that with Rene Assa. The film also features some cinematography by Zoran Hochstadter, and it's okay. It's alright for a direct-to-video movie. So is the editing by Nina Gilberti. But I wanted to mention the score by Chuck Serino, because I immediately took notice of this score from the opening credits, which was a fun mix of different genres. And I keep mentioning fun because that's just the best word to describe a lot of things when it comes to this movie, or at least a lot of the things that work. And I loved this opening score. There was like a mix of Western music and stuff like Terminator 2, or the Terminator. It had this really unique blend of different genres of scores that were put together for this piece by Chuck Serino. And I think this is honestly one of his better scores as well. Like, the whole score is really good for a direct-to-video movie. Like, I was really surprised by this score. I even thought it was a better score than the score in the first film. But yeah, and it's a movie that also it goes by at a decent enough pace. It's 93 minutes, and that's with the end credits. It's not what I would call a boring movie. It's not great. And it might even be a stretch to call it a good film. But it's serviceable. It's decent. It's a time waster for me. It could have been a good film, and more than just a scattering of good elements if it nailed the ending. But it botched the ending so badly that I just can't really enjoy it as anything more than just a time waster. But that's my thoughts, and that's my review on 976 Evil 2, The Astral Factor. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.